Yeah, welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast Live. Yes. Yeah, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get into it. Got some pretty interesting topics for you here today. Definitely gonna be NBA heavy. Obviously, we just got finished with the conference finals, and now we know who's playing in the NBA finals. But before we get to that, you know what time it is. If you're here on YouTube and you haven't already, please make sure you go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio-only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in The Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you give us that like, that 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And finally, make sure you write it down, put it in your phone, set an alarm, do whatever you got to do to remember. Saturday nights at 7 p.m. we are live here on the Format Podcast, and we'll give you the opportunity to call in, talk to us, get at me. I love it. I can't wait. If you consume a lot of sports media, which obviously I do, I'm a member of the sports media. I listen to a ton of podcasts, I read a ton of stuff, and it's like there are certain things which are kind of go-to moves in the sports media to kind of draw attention and to be kind of successful in terms of a story or an idea, right? And one of those go-tos is comparison with past players or a GOAT debate, whether no matter what the sport is, right? And this season, more towards the end of it, we kind of saw and heard a comparison that personally I couldn't believe when I heard it, and but it's pretty much on the shelf now. And that comparison is Anthony Edwards being compared to the GOAT himself, Michael Jeffrey Jordan. And yes, I said Michael Jeffrey Jordan is the GOAT. There's no question about that. Anyway, yeah, so Anthony Edwards was compared to Michael Jordan. And for the life of me, I couldn't really figure out why. Like I really racked my brain, try to watch him play, try to pay attention and look at it. And I don't see where the comparison is. And it's funny because longtime NBA scribe and now television and radio personality Chris Broussard of The Odd Couple and of what's the show he's on with Nick Wright? Can't remember the name of the show, but he's a Fox Sports 1 and Fox Sports Radio television and radio personality. Chris Broussard, he was on The Odd Couple and he said that he texted with Michael Jordan and that Michael Jordan actually said that he saw some similarities between himself and Anthony Edwards. So now I'll say this. As of late, we've been seeing and hearing some discrepancies in terms of sportscasters or sports reporters and their reporting and some of the truth. I hate to call out my journalistic brethren, but sometimes we see that and it's unfortunate. But now I'll say this: if Chris Broussard said on air that he texted with Michael Jordan and that Michael Jordan said something, I think it's fair that we can kind of take that Michael Jordan said he saw that. So Michael Jordan, according to Chris Broussard, said that he saw some similarities between himself and Anthony Edwards. And me personally, I never saw it. So I must be blind. I know I wear glasses, but I must be completely blind because I never saw those similarities. But that doesn't mean that Anthony Edwards is not a special talent, because we know in the modern world, anytime you disagree with something, apparently it makes people think that you're obviously you're championing the polar opposite of that. And that's not what I'm saying, right? I'm not saying that because I don't see similarities between Michael Jordan and Anthony Edwards, that Anthony Edwards is a bum. That's not what I'm saying at all. I know he's a special talent. What I'm saying is I don't see uh that particular comparison. I just don't. So I was looking at it, going back and watching some stuff here, and Anthony Edwards, he's fast, he's explosive, he can shoot it, he can finish at the rim. He's got all the tools, right? But I see absolutely nothing of Michael Jordan when I watch this guy play. Again, maybe I'm blind. I just don't see it. Now, I love that he doesn't shy away from defense. He, being Anthony Edwards, he wants to defend. Now, maybe next time he'd be a little more quiet when you are going to draw that assignment against an elite offensive player. Probably the better move, right? I love that he doesn't shy away from defense. However, Michael Jordan was a completely different animal entirely. and he was probably the best perimeter defender of all time, right? It's either Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, or Gary Payton, 3 best perimeter defenders of all time. I will brook no argument on any of that. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, where is this comparison coming from? Other than they're both, young lions, they're explosive, etc. And well, Anthony Edwards is a young lion, reminiscent of Jordan when he was a young lion. Again, some people think that. I don't see it, but okay, cool. When you look at the best perimeter defender of all time in Michael Jordan, he could completely lock down his assignment, meanwhile still being the best offensive player, not just in the game, but in the league. And if we're real, Anthony Edwards is nowhere close to that. Again, that doesn't mean that he's a bum. I'm not saying that, but he's nowhere close to being the best offensive player and the best defensive player in the league. It's just, he's not. Now, Anthony Edwards is 22 years old. He's got tons of time to develop, and I'm good with that. But it just sucks that these type of comparisons have to get made. And I kind of understand it from a journalistic and a TV and a radio standpoint. I get it, but I don't agree with it. And it's not something I like to do, right? And because part of what happens then is that subconsciously, the player with whom these comparisons are being made, Anthony Edwards and Michael Jordan, they try to live up to that, even though you get a guy like Anthony Edwards, and he said that, and this is not the exact quote, but he's not really comfortable with the comparison, right? But subconsciously, someone tells you, Michael Jordan said he sees some similarities, or you could be the next face of the league, and you are Jordan-esque, right? Now you figure in the back of your mind, it's like, man, I have to live up to that. I have to do that, even though who has the ability to live up to that other than Kobe, right? Kobe was the only one who was able to come close enough to that comparison. Okay. When you think about Michael Jordan, though, the way he moved was so different, even different from Kobe himself. And we know that Kobe is, again, the closest that you will ever see to Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan in the air, he was so much more graceful in his dunks and in his layup package, and it just looked different. It all just looked different. Even though when Michael Jordan was banging on people, it just looked different. Now, again, Kobe, obviously, closest we're ever going to see to Michael Jordan, but even he wasn't quite there. Now, some might say that he surpassed Michael Jordan, and I get it. I disagree, but I get why some people might say that. It's not that serious. Jordan was a dog when he came into the league. Ant-Man is good, has mad potential, but he doesn't have that mentality. Ant has the talent to be an all-time great, but doesn't have the mental. He doesn't have the mental yet, right? And we'll talk about that a little more. He doesn't have the mental yet. Again, he's 22 years old, so I don't want this to seem like I'm lambasting Ant-Man. He's still a young cat, right? And he has time to develop. He has time to grow, both in his game and in his mental. And I think that's going to come because I think he wants it. But at the same time, we got to stop putting the weight on these guys with these type of comparisons. So obviously the Timberwolves, they went out in 5 in the Western Conference Finals against the Mavs. And Ant-Man, he wasn't quite the same. He wasn't quite the same player that we saw against the Nuggets. Part of that was the matchup. Part of that was the fatigue. All right, hold on. Let's take this call. What's up, G? You a little behind, man?
Nah, man, you jumping through really, really quick, bro.
I'm jumping through quick. What you got, bro?
All right, so I was looking at how this matchup between the Celtics and Dallas, how that's gonna play out, and
I think you're a little behind. Go ahead, though.
Yeah, couple of X factors would be Al Horford, what he brings to the game in the clutch. I think that'll be the game changer for the Celtics. But that two duo, that's the best backcourt. I mean, in the league right now when you look at Dallas Mavericks.
I agree.
And what Kyrie and Luka bring to the table. I'm also looking at like how Kyrie is gonna respond to the fans, right? They got history, and so that'll be interesting. I think he's gonna go off for at least 50 plus 2 times during this series.
I don't see that.
You don't see that?
No, I don't see that because I don't think he's going to try to force it, and it's hard for him to get 50 when Luka's on the floor with him.
Yeah, but how are they going to lock somebody up? He's going to lock somebody up, and so that's going to be more shots for one of the two. But then I don't know if Porzingis is playing either, and how much time he's gonna get.
So they're saying Porzingis might be ready for game one, and that was something I touched on earlier. Is that I'm not sure at all how he's going to fit in, especially not offensively. So we'll have to see how that goes. But the other thing I was saying was defensively, you don't leave any one guy on Luka or on Kyrie. I think you rotate bodies and you throw different bodies and different assignments at them so that they're not able to ever get comfortable with one defender. That's my thought. And then the other thing was you do everything you can to take the ball out of Luka's hands as much as possible. You deny him, you trap him, you bring the traps from the double teams from different places on the floor so that he doesn't get comfortable passing out of those traps. Those are my thoughts. And again, that seems like basic stuff to me, but it's stuff that for the most part we haven't seen so far in terms of trying to defend Luka in this playoff run.
Yeah, Dallas definitely has the superior backcourt.
Mm-hmm.
It will be interesting to see how they switch and double team and what type of look they throw at them, because both of those can, their range starts soon as they cross the hash. So,
yeah.
So I think we got a good one this time this year.
I think we got a great one.
We got a good one. Yeah.
I think it's a perfect matchup, perfectly even. I can't even pick one.
Yeah. That's all I got, brother.
All right, fam. I appreciate you calling in, man.
Yep.
All right, brother. Be safe out there. All right, where were we? Let's get back to Anthony Edwards. So, okay. Gotta check my notes here, see where I am, catch up. All right, but yeah. So the T-Wolves, they went out in 5 in the Western Conference Finals, and so I was mentioning that Anthony Edwards, he didn't quite look the same as we saw versus the Nuggets. Now, part of that was the fatigue. Part of that was just a different matchup. Part of that was, him attempting to guard Kyrie on one end and then still having to be the offensive leader on the other end. And then also, in fairness, not getting enough help from Karl-Anthony Towns, who decides he wants to just hang out and shoot threes. Gets on my nerves, man. Gets on my nerves. That's where the late, great Bill Walton says, throw it down, big man. Throw it down one time. You got to stop hanging out shooting all these threes. Yeah, you can shoot it, but get your butt on the block, catch a mouse in the house, and go to work. But that's a different story. Anyway, so one of the things that I want to point to in terms of, remember I said earlier that the comparisons regarding this topic of video on KG talking about MJ preparation for next season. Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to get to that. I definitely was going to bring that up. It's not that serious. Appreciate you, man. Definitely was going to bring that up. So yeah, one of the things I mentioned earlier in this segment is that now that Anthony Edwards is out of the playoffs and they lost, especially in the way that they lost, all that Jordan comparison talk and face of the league stuff is kind of on the shelf for now. And so one of the things that I think is different in terms of Michael Jordan and Edwards, even at a young age, right, is remember the people that want to root for the other guy in the GOAT debate, they always point to the fact that early in his career, Jordan was getting swept out of the playoffs. He wasn't having success and all that. But if we look at it, Jordan was still killing even when his teams were going out, his very bad teams. When his teams were going out, he was still killing, right? He was going insane in the playoffs. Before he started winning titles, Michael Jordan had 5 different playoff runs averaging more than 34 points per game. And of course, we know in '86, he had that legendary series against the Celtics where they got swept out by Larry Bird and company. I think there was 5 Hall of Famers on that Celtics team. And Jordan and the Bulls, terrible team again, they got swept. And Michael Jordan averaged 44 points per game in those 3 games against the Celtics. So that's just another difference between Michael Jordan and Ant Edwards, even at a young age, is that even when Michael Jordan was losing, he was destroying everything in sight. And we can't say that about Ant Edwards when he lost. So it's kind of different. So the other night, I think it was a couple nights ago on The Odd Couple, which is a show I listen to very regularly on Fox Sports Radio with Rob Parker and Chris Broussard, they were discussing Anthony Edwards, and they probably talked about him maybe about 20 minutes. That was one of their main topics in one of the hours of the show, but obviously I didn't cut 20 minutes, but I have a clip of that, so I want to share it with you and then come back and discuss it.
So I think we'll look back at this, Rob, and maybe there'll be another series we add to this. But we'll look back and say this was him going through his growing pains like Jordan did with the Pistons, like the Pistons did with the Celtics, like LeBron did at times, with the Spurs being swept. This will be, his even Luka has had his playoff disappointments. And so we'll see if he's up to the task, Rob. But I think he is, but he just got to keep working.
Yeah, but the fire has definitely been put out a little bit. Like, people were ready, Chris. They thought, my God, 22, there was all this talk, buzz, the Michael Jordan stuff. I mean, he was on fire, and everybody was raving about him and thinking, look at what this 22-year-old kid, the games he was putting up 40 points. It was like, wow, look at he's breaking through all these things that we thought you had to do, to get to that point. Right. Everybody was ready to pick him to go to the finals. Yes. Oh, look at the Timberwolves. Look at Ant-Man. My God, he's arrived. No, not yet.
Do you think that, because I think with the Michael Jordan comparisons, in my mind, certainly my thoughts, but I think with most others, it was more stylistic. You see,
I get it, but just to be...
Jordan, but I don't think, I personally, and I've said this from the first day I mentioned him and Jordan in the same breath. I don't think he'll ever be in the GOAT conversation or a top 10 player like that. So I don't think, maybe I'm wrong. I don't think people were saying he's going to ever be as good or arguably as good as Jordan. But I think they're saying the game has similarities. Even Jordan said that, texted that to me.
Right, I get that. But whenever you mention that guy's name with anybody, Chris, people are going to have extremely high expectations.
Okay, so I love the comments that were made there. So the first one, well, I guess the last one that Rob Parker left us on was whenever you mention that guy's name with anybody, and that's the Michael Jordan comparison. Remember, I talked earlier about the subconscious need of the player being compared to the GOAT to try and live up to that. But Rob Parker just said there that there's going to be high expectations. And no matter what you do to try and quell those expectations, you get named with that guy, it's just going to be what it's going to be. And either you live up to it or you don't, right? And so I think that in this situation, and I mentioned it a little while ago, even though the T-Wolves lost, had Ant Edwards really been going off in the losing, it would have been viewed a little differently. But now it's, like Rob said, the fire's kind of out. Maybe pour some cold water on it. Now, again, 22 years old. This is the thing I want to make sure that I make clear. He's 22 years old. He's got, God willing, a lot of time left to develop himself mentally, physically into that guy. So there's no question about that. He is special already, and he can be even better. But we just want to make sure that we acknowledge he's 22 years old. So nobody's trying to bury the dude. We're just saying it's the nature of the sports media to put somebody on a pedestal, and then if they don't immediately deliver, to put them away. And so Chris Broussard, at the beginning of that clip, he talked about the growing pains. And it's true, right? The vast majority of the all-time greats have to go through those growing pains before they can win. Now, sometimes you got guys who get lucky. You have a Tim Duncan who came in the league in 1997. And 2 years later, he's winning the championship because why? He had an all-time great in the front court with him in David Robinson. So the Spurs got lucky. They tanked for the pick. They got lucky and won the draft lottery, and they drafted Tim Duncan. So that happens. You have a situation where Magic Johnson gets drafted by the Lakers in 1979. You already have the reigning league MVP there. You've got Norm Nixon, a multiple-time All-Star, running point. You got Bob McAdoo, a multiple-time scoring champion and MVP runner-up. He comes over in a trade. So you had a really good team pretty much already in place there. Then you obviously add Magic Johnson, who in my estimation is a top 3 player all time and the greatest point guard of all time. And, well, you're off to the races, and Showtime ends up beginning, and you get the first of 5 championships. But very rarely does it go down like that, where somebody can walk into the league and immediately get busy. That just almost never happens, right? And so you look at some of the other all-time greats. Obviously, Michael Jordan entered the league 1984, didn't win a championship until 1991. Hakeem Olajuwon entered the league in 1984, number 1 overall pick, and didn't win a championship till 1994. Isaiah Thomas, think he came in the league 1982, didn't win a championship until 1988. And Zeke always talks about how he had to watch the Celtics, and then he had to go through the Celtics, and then he had to lose in the finals to the Lakers, and then he had to go through the Lakers, and he went through Portland. So he went through his growing pains, right? So we know that. Obviously, LeBron James, he enters the league in 2003, doesn't win a championship till 2012, the 2011-2012 season is when LeBron wins his first championship, and he had to go through his stuff. Steph Curry, he went through injuries, and then they went through building the team and so on and so forth. So it took some time before he won a championship. Kevin Durant took some time before he won a championship. So all these all-time greats, they all had to go through their growing pains, and there's no reason to think that Anthony Edwards would have been any different, or that it makes him any less of a player because he has to go through he has to go through the pain. He has to feel it. He has to understand what it's going to take to get to that next level. And now here are some interesting comments by Anthony Edwards himself that he made after the Game 5 loss in the post-game presser. And I liked and disliked some of those comments. And so let's hear it, and then we will be back to discuss it.
Hey, and what did you learn through this playoffs, and what do you think it will do for you this summer as you prepare to come back next year and go even further?
I mean, you just know how you got to train because, like I said, I've never played this deep into a basketball season. So now I know, like, okay, in order for me to be able to be dominant in the third round, and if we get past the worst comes final to go to the finals, I got to train like I'm going to go to the playoffs. So I can't be missing training days. I can't take days off. I can't, you know what I mean? I got to be ready. So now I know what it takes. I'll be ready.
And I know it's a quick pivot here, but what are you looking forward to from the Olympics experience coming up?
I don't even want to talk. I don't know.
As a leader of this team, what do you say to the other players on your team about workouts this summer? Is it specific things you want them to work on, or do you think they just improve on their own and you guys all come back for training camp?
Yeah, they got their own trainers, their own guys. They just work on their game. But I just told them, like, y'all know that we're going to be right back in the same position next year. So y'all know how y'all need to train to get ready, and include myself, like, because we trained this year as if we was going to just play 82 games, maybe one round of the playoffs. We didn't know we was going to go this far, so we didn't train like it this summer. I know nobody did, especially myself. So I think this summer is going to be huge for all of us because we know what type of team we got and we know what we're capable of, so we need to train like we know what we're going to do.
All right, so let's talk about some things that I liked and didn't like about Anthony Edwards' commentary there. So first, I liked when he was asked about the Olympic question. He didn't even entertain that. He's like, I'm not trying to hear that, because that to me says that he's still hurting from losing, and he just finished getting knocked out of the playoffs, knowing his season is over, and he cares about that. He's not just glossing over it, looking past it. Okay, it's done. Next thing, Olympics, right? You can tell that he's hurting from he's not sitting up there crying, but the fact that he's like, nah, I'm not even thinking about that. You could tell that means that he's hurting, and he's focused on the fact that his season just ended not in the way that he would have wanted it to. So I like that. I also liked that he took accountability, which we know there are superstars who don't take accountability, right, Reggie Miller? But I like the fact that he said, especially me, or he said me too, or something along those lines, when he was talking about training and everybody doing their thing to get back to that point. Okay, so some of the things I didn't like, I didn't like when he talked about the lack of training to get there. The fact that he and his team didn't expect to do much. They only trained for an 82-game season because they didn't expect to make a deep playoff run. Even if that's the case, and you felt that way, the honesty is cool, but I wouldn't have said that publicly. I don't like the fact that he came out and he publicly says, we didn't expect to do anything. Like, that's not the type of mentality that you want to be putting out there publicly as a leader. And even though he's only 22, he's clearly the leader of this team, right? And the best player is not always a leader. Look at Kawhi-led teams because, he's just not a leader, even though he's a great player. Teams with Kevin Durant on it, again, not a leader, even though he's a great player. So it doesn't always work that way. But Ant Edwards, you can clearly see, is the leader of the team. But I didn't like him openly acknowledging that the team didn't expect to get anywhere and that they felt like they were just training for an 82-game season. I didn't like the fact that he was kind of like, well, all these guys got their own trainers and stuff like that. And yeah, they do have all their own trainers, and I respect that. But I'm thinking as a leader, I would probably have said something more along the lines of, all these guys, they have their own trainers and they do their own thing, and I respect that. But probably before camp starts, I'm going to want to come together as a leader on this, as one of the leaders. You don't have to necessarily publicly take on that role because maybe it will offend some of the veterans, but then you word it right. You say, as one of the leaders on this team, something I would like to do is get these guys together. Like we heard about Michael Jordan and the Breakfast Club, right? That's one of the things. So you say, I want to get these guys together and, maybe we do some team building and maybe we do some work together because we expect to be back here next year, which he did say. He says, but he also should say, but we know how hard it's going to be and what that's going to take to not just be back here next year, but to be here and have success and get to the next level. So again, a lot easier to say when you're 45 than 22, right? You can kind of see these things a little better, but those are some of the things I liked and didn't like about his commentary. But again, I want to make it clear that even though I do not see the Michael Jordan comparisons, and I think those should go in the trash forever, I still believe that Anthony Edwards is an extremely special player. I love watching him play. I think he's got a super bright future. I mean, if he's only been in the league a few years, again, he's very young. He could end up being a top 10, maybe top 7 shooting guard of all time. That would be an incredible career, but to compare him to the greatest of all time, there's just no need for that. All right, so I'm going to leave it there on the Anthony Edwards topic, and I'm going to open up the phone lines. What do you guys think? I want you to call in and let me know about what you think about the Anthony Edwards, Michael Jordan comparisons. Let me know if you see something that I'm not seeing. Let me know if you feel like I want to know your thoughts on whether or not those comparisons lead to a player subconsciously pushing to maybe do things to try to live up to the comparisons. Let me know if you like this commentary. Just give me a call and let me know your thoughts on that. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about the Anthony Edwards topic. Oh, before we wrap up that topic, while I'm waiting to see if anyone calls in, it's not that serious. He had made a comment. Let me put it back up here. And he was saying that I had a video, I think it was earlier in the week, and Kevin Garnett, he was on the All the Smoke podcast, and he was talking with Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes. And one of the things that he brought up was the influence that Michael Jordan had in terms of changing the way people train in the offseason and train, and the expectations that franchises, organizations now have on their star players, because many players in the past, they would kind of use training camp to work themselves into shape. Meanwhile, Michael Jordan, with his mentality, was one of the things that he taught the young guys and the really outstanding players was train all the way through the beginning of July, because at the end of the day, if you want to win a championship, you're going to be playing into late June. So you want to train through the beginning of July, and you want to keep playing and visualize yourself playing at a high level at that point. And to that's kind of something that Anthony Edwards and his team probably could benefit from going forward. And hopefully, I'm pretty sure that being that Kevin Garnett played the bulk of his career in Minnesota, hopefully he'll have the opportunity to kind of impart that wisdom and pass that down to the younger guys on this team and help them get to where they can take the next step forward. Now, obviously, we know the West is always a nightmare, but we'll see. What's up, Antoine?
Yeah, this is a very good segment, first and foremost.
Thank you.
But as far as there was just so hard when you do like the the chat and stuff like that, you can't get a full context of what you mean. I think he would be if he at the rate he's going, he would be a very good player.
I agree.
Potentially an all-time great because his talent, says that. But I don't want to be too long in this, but I just want to give a certain perspective. I was listening to this is well-researched segment about how, in every passing 20 years, the testosterone of men is less by 20 points. And it's interesting for that. It's the mentality of each generation as it progresses. Our fathers work harder than us. We work harder than our children, and so forth. They got all these different conveniences and express yourself and stuff like that. Whereas, we raise our fathers like, hey, we need to do things in this way. These are the things that I overcome. And you try to give them information to build up themselves to do so to the kids, but it's almost like a reverse of that. It's like, it's that mentality that pushes you beyond your physical gifts. That's what made Jordan, so great, Magic, and all these other, all-time great basketball players.
Yeah.
It's the mentality behind the work. So when it comes to Ant-Man, what I fear for him is that look how weak the league is. And they're great talents and stuff like that. They talk about these players are bigger, faster, stronger, but yet they may play more seasons, but they play less games per season. So what does that equate to? It's like we're being told the story about the NBA instead of the NBA being, bred on the talent and the mentality and, like something I was watching earlier, there's not even a specific offer or a specific defense or a specific scheme that teams have to prepare for. Everybody wants the 3-point line. Somebody, they try to draw the big guys from the paint and stuff like that. Every team has the same way of playing today because there's no creativity, but everything is so narrative driven. And everybody from our passion and boom, but it's on his watch when this stuff starts. It is what it is. And so when everybody's calling him gold or second and third, I think that insulting to all the greats before them because you can't tell a LeBron stat without telling the story. That's what makes him so false. He's not even in my top 10 at all. I don't care about longevity stats because if you're averaging playing 60 games a year, for 10 years, you didn't even play that entire season. So I say all that to say this if it becomes him. I hope that he adopts that old school mentality. Some of the things he said in that interview, it's like it's almost like he realized, okay, this is how hard I have to work. I didn't prepare to go beyond the first round of the playoffs. He said directly, just paraphrasing. I didn't prepare to go beyond, essentially the first round. We just the 82 games and what happens happens. So now, he made it to the Western Conference Finals. Okay, I like the way that feels. I know what I got to do now. So I just hope some veteran talk to him to fuel that fire for him to understand what it takes to get there, how hard he has to work to benefit the talent that he has displayed to the NBA. That's all I got to say on that.
I appreciate the call, man, and I definitely agree with you on that. I definitely agree. It seems like he's got it, but we'll have to, I guess time will tell, right? All right, brother. Thanks for the call, man. Appreciate you.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.